you ready, Brenda? Will you please give her a hand as she courageously tells her story for the first time? Brenda Rozendal of Hamilton, Ontario.
By the way, I'm very nervous. I've never spoke in front of a crowd this big. Thank you, Tanya and Frederick, for inviting me to speak at your fundraiser. We are here tonight to help with a cause that is very much needed in Hamilton for some of our young youth. Art Rozendal, age 43, was beaten and stomped to death on January the 14th, 2005 by two young men. Please bear with me. Art and myself and one of our two boys went out for dinner at a neighborhood eatery about 5 minutes from our mountain home. This was a place that we could meet with friends, have a good time, and feel safe. The night was filled with laughter, playing pool, and dancing. That night, my life changed forever. Art and Neil played a couple of games of pool. There were two pool tables. Art and Neil at one and two young men at the other. They played side beside each other and everyone got along fine. About 10:30, one of the waitresses came to me and told me that Art had been beaten up and the police were on their way. I went to find Art. He was laying in the hallway, face down, not moving. I bent down, called his name, shook him, and checked for a pulse. He had none. He laid there lifeless. I continued to do a body check. By this time, an officer had arrived. I told the officer who I was and that I had training in CPR and nursing. So we agreed to perform CPR. When we rolled him over, he didn't look like him. His face was badly bruised, his eyes swollen shut. Blood was coming out of his mouth, his nose, and his left ear. As we started CPR, cleared his mouth of blood so I could breathe for him. It seemed like a lifetime before of all of Hamilton's finest, and I'm not being sarcastic when I say that, because they are our finest. They took me away from the scene, and from where I was sitting, I could see them working on him. They took out the defibrillator, then they put it down. Right there, I knew within my heart that Art was dead. I started to panic. My oldest son, Neil, had left to go home to meet his brother Jordan when he got home from work so he could join us. I had to phone someone to go over to the house and stay with the boys, so I phoned my sister Beverly. The call went like this. Beverly, it's Brenda. Art's been beat up and he's not breathing. And all you could hear was dead silence. So I repeated it. Beverly, Art's been beat up and he's not breathing. I asked her if she could go over, if her and her husband Fred could go over and stay with the boys until I got home because I was needed at the hospital. As I was going to the hospital, all I kept thinking was, this doesn't happen in Hamilton, let alone on Hamilton Mountain. When I got to the hospital, I had to start calling family to come down because things did not look good. I was put in a quiet room that was not that quiet, being a Friday night at the Hamilton General. While making those calls, my sister Bev walked in with my two boys and her husband. She looked at my face and she knew what the outcome was. As I was sitting with Neil and Jordan, telling them how proud their father was of them and what fine young men they had grown into. The doctor walked in. One of my sons asked if he could see his dad. The doctor said, no, he's dead. I got up and I said to that doctor, I didn't care how long he was in that emergency room. He needed to go back to school and learn some bedside manners. When I finally got home from the police station from being questioned and giving my statement, I had to call Art's father and stepmother. They live about an 8 to 10 hour drive from here. I told them that Art had been beaten up and they were needed in Hamilton. They said to phone them and let them know how he was doing. So I had to tell them Art was dead. As the day went on, you have people in and out of your house, friends, police, media. As I finally sat down, my hands were feeling dirty. When I looked at them, they had Art's blood on them. I started to panic. As I washed my hands, the blood didn't seem like it was washing off. The more I washed, it was still there. My sister Diane grabbed my hands and looked me in the eyes. And I hope you'll never have to see the hurt, the sadness, and the pain in someone's eyes. She said to me, "Baby, the blood's gone," and held me like she'd never let me go. I'm sorry.
You're doing great.
I'm fine. That night, when people had left, I really didn't feel tired. I tried to sleep, but you really don't. When I got up in the morning, I put on the kettle to make tea for two. I took one cup up the stairs for Art. When I got to our room, I realized what had happened on Friday, and that Art was not there, and he had never be coming home. Who would have thought that the two young men who played pool right beside Art and Neil would be the ones who had taken his life? Do you really know who your next door neighbors are, the kids who hang around with your kids? There are right now in the city of Hamilton many gangs, but 5 hardcore gangs. And there are 5 hardcore gangs that come to Hamilton from Toronto to do their business and cause damage that can never be repaired. That's 10 hardcore gangs we have in Hamilton. The young men were ages 19 and 21. They were in a gang, and they came from another city that took my husband's life. Our life was filled with fear, knowing it was a gang that was responsible for Art's death. We never knew that kind of lifestyle. Just a few months ago, I had another experience with a gang right in my own neighborhood. A neighbor saw a father chasing some young man through the park and went to help the father. The neighbor was swarmed and a knife was produced, and a young man was stabbed. I saw the stabbed young man and went to help. That is when I realized how young some of these gang members are. Maybe Liberty for Youth can help these young people find a solid direction. If more organizations like Liberty for Youth were around, then maybe young people would have someone to talk to or a place to go that care and would help them change. And I'm only standing here because my husband died so senselessly. There was no confrontation, no nothing. He was just beaten and stomped to death. And I always said that I really hope something good comes out of his death. And with Frederick and Tanya and the people like you, then my husband didn't die needlessly. Thank you.